Hello, virtual design students. I want us to get started on our new project, which is to create a 3D word using 2-point perspective with the theme environmental crisis. So you're going to create your 3D word, which we will go through together, and then you're going to nest it into an environment of your choosing that will illustrate your choice for your environmental issue. And that can be things like climate change, it could be farming, pesticides, animal abuse, any kinds of issues that you can think of that are affecting our world right now. Feel free to choose one that really kind of speaks to you and choose a word that correlates to it, and you're going to create an environment to put the word in. So let's go ahead and start with 2-point perspective. If you've never done this before, don't worry, we're going to do it together. And how to start is I've got my paper, and for this one I'm using a smaller paper than my final. Preferably these would be a 10 by 16, but right now I'm doing a 9 by 12. Just for this example. So I have a ruler, and I'm very lightly going to sketch a horizon line at about the middle or slightly higher on my paper. It's actually going to be up to you whether you want your horizon line to be diagonal or maybe lower or maybe higher to create a different effect on your letters. Whether you want to see the tops of them or the bottom of them, it's up to you. So, since this is going to be 2-point perspective, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 points onto my horizon line. Now, these little points are called vanishing points. Very important thing to know. And I'm going to start first with this right vanishing point, and using my ruler, I'm lining it up with the vanishing point, and then I'm just going to swivel my ruler at an angle. You get to kind of choose this, doesn't matter how far you go, but just make sure that when you do the underside, you keep the same angle. And I'm just gonna eyeball it here, but for this underside, I'm lining up against the vanishing point, and I'm drawing my other grid line. Okay, so this is where we're gonna draw the word. And something else that I want you to do is to create space for your letters to go in. And the word I'm going to do for this project is future, F-U-T-U-R-E. So I'm just going to go in and sketch out spaces so that I have a nice even spacing for my letters. So I have 6 letters in future. I only need to have 5 lines because then I will create 6 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. And so from here, I like to kind of go in, and I've got a section for each letter. I'm just going to go in and lightly sketch my letter. You might not be able to see this very well, but I like to do this just because it helps me keep up spacing and to make sure that I'm maximizing how much of this section I'm using. You want to really use as much as you can. So now I have these kind of sketched in really lightly, and all I'm going to do is create bubble letters. So I'm going to start here with my F, and I want to have my F follow the angle that was created from my vanishing point. And the best way to do that is to line up your ruler with your vanishing point and draw the line. Okay, so this has now become the top of my F. And I'm going to cut into that a little bit because I don't want the body of my F to be that thin. So now I'm just going to go down and create the middle portion which is kind of nice to have this horizon line because you can use it as the guideline for this little part of the F. And then I'm going to bring it down so that it touches the top as well as the bottom of my paper. You want to really fill the whole space, okay? Now I'm going to move on to my U. And the cool part about these section lines that I have here, I can actually use them as the outside of my bubble letter. So I'm going to use those lines as my U shape. So I'm just going to work my way down and then curve as I get to the bottom. And then starting from the top, I'm just going to go down and back up. Using the whole space is what we want to emphasize. So my T, this is going to be another one of those situations where you want to line up the T with my vanishing point so that my T is going to follow this direction. And then I can just eyeball the trunk of the T. And it's kind of nice because if you sketched in a T, you've got it where the body of the T is sort of at the center, and then you're just creating the bubble letters on either side. So it's kind of nice. You get a trick for how to center your stuff. And now I'm going in with my other U. Again, filling the space. My R, I'm using that line that I did for my sections. I'm gonna cut in a little bit. Make the leg of my R touch the bottom. And the inside of the R. Now moving on to the E. This is also going to follow the same line. So yet again, I'm letting my ruler do the work. Coming down, using the horizon line for my midpoint, and letting that grid line be the bottom of the E. Now I'm going to go through and erase the lines that I have on the inside of my word because I no longer need them. And I'm also going to erase the sections that I created for my spacing. Okay, so here's where things get really fun because now we're going to use our other vanishing point to create the angle for the sides and the shadows of our 3D word that go back in space. So we started by using this vanishing point. We are now moving to this one over here. And I'll start with the U, but basically I'm going to align my vanishing point with the bottom of the U. And I'm just going to draw a little line. Okay. And again with my T, the very corner of the T with my vanishing point and line. Same thing with the other U. Okay, the R. And another thing I want to point out is that this leg part of the R is also going to have a line. So the R is going to have two shadow parts. So I'm going to draw that. All right, and I'm not going to worry about putting one on the E just because the R really is hiding it, but I do want to add the back side of the E here so that I don't forget to do that in the end. So now from here, you're just going to mimic the line that you created with your letter, and about 1 centimeter out from that, I'm just going to meet the line that we created and bring it up. Okay? Same thing with the T. I'm meeting at the line and I'm bringing it all the way up. Again with the U, curving it at the bottom, trying to mimic that line. And the R. Okay, and so for this part of the R, that's a little bit different. You're gonna make sort of like an upside down J shape. So I like to start at the bottom, and then as I go up, I just lose my sight of this shadow part at the corner here because of the angles. Okay, now for the fun stuff. So this is gonna be the details, and by that I mean the inside of the A, the inside of the R, the inside of the U, and also this little underside of the T. So this is actually, we're seeing the underbelly of the top of the T. And let's go ahead and start with that one because it feels a little funky, but we'll do it together. So we're gonna use our left vanishing point, and I'm gonna line it up with the corner of my T and draw a line starting from the corner of my T to the U. Now I have this vertical line that I can erase. And now we can tell that this is different from this. So I'm gonna go in and add the other details with for my other letters, starting with the U. I'm only coming into that the right side. And instead of creating an upside down J like we did with the R, we're creating just a normal J. Same for the other U. It's just with the angle, since we're seeing the exterior side, we know we're gonna see the interior side, okay? All right, those look good. And now all I have left is the little crescent moon on the inside of the R. All right, so these areas are gonna be where the shadows happen. One thing I wanna point out, it's gonna depend on what word you choose and what letter the word starts with. But since I have no line over here with my F, I'm actually gonna put my ruler right on the edge of my paper and draw a line so that I have a little hint at some shadow. And this bottom side is going to go back in space, similar to these ones. So you're gonna wanna erase that little bit of your grid line so that this feels more natural. And from here, now I'm just gonna go in and start to shade my word. And you can add a bit deeper dimension to these shadows in certain areas. Like I know that as my U is like closer towards the bottom, it's gonna be darker here than it will be at the top. It's still gonna have a nice like medium shadow tone to it, but you can create a little bit of a gradient within your shadows. They don't all have to be this one flat tone, okay? And speaking of that, a big area that you're gonna wanna focus on is the underbelly of this T. So I'm gonna go ahead and shade in the body of the T here. And then once we get up to this underside part, this side is gonna be much darker than the side. So I wanna really shade that deeply because I know that this side is basically reflecting the shadow side. So there's really not a lot of light happening here at this underside of the T, okay? But so when you shade it, now we have this visual understanding that this is separate from the body, right? We understand that it goes back in space. So I'm just gonna go through and continue to shade. Okay, so I've got the rest of my words shaded, and from here basically you can go in and just continue to erase those grid lines that you drew. You want to have a nice clean background so that you can then go in and start to draw your environment. All right, so I want you to make sure you put these grid lines on very lightly so that you can erase them. You will get marked down if you are very heavy-handed, and I can see all of your marks and your grid lines still on your paper. So being light-handed for these grid lines is crucial, okay? Now just a reminder, you get to pick your word, you get to pick your environment, and you get to pick your environmental issue. So have fun with this and really give it your best effort.